The Mindset Advantage, a podcast by Arcadia Consulting, architects of change.
Welcome to the season 2 of the Arcadia Consulting Mindset Advantage podcast series. My name is Andy Wolfe, and I'm one of the co-founders of Arcadia Consulting. And today it's a great pleasure for me to be talking with someone who's got a mutual passion that we share, and it's about cricket. But I want to introduce you to Will Gaffney, who is the founder and the driving force behind a charity in cricket called Bat for a Chance. And we're going to have a chat today, Will, about where you come from, who you are, and what it is that drives you. So before we do that, Will, would you like to just tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. So thank you very much for having me today. It's a delight to be here. I founded Bat for a Chance, a cricketing charity that helps distribute cricket kit from here in the UK around the world to wherever it needs to be. Aside from that, I'm still at school. So if you can see me, I'm in my bedroom at school. I've just started my A-levels. So I had the whole sort of GCSE teacher assessed grades stuff throughout the summer, and obviously love my cricket. It's a massive passion of mine, as I think it is of yours as well, Andy.
It is. Why don't we start there, Will? Because I'd love to know, what is it about cricket that you love? Tell me about that, and I'll share with you my own passion. So what is it about cricket that you love?
I think cricket's got this fantastic, unique ability to just bring people together from all walks of life. I play a lot of what's called village cricket, essentially, which is in all the local villages around the UK. Essentially, there's a cricket team somewhere, somehow. No matter the age, no matter where you're from, everyone comes together to play cricket, and you meet people from all different walks of life. And I really do mean that. You know, I've met some remarkable individuals and had some brilliant conversations on the side of a boundary whilst waiting to bat, etc. And most importantly, it's good fun. You know, people often say standing in the field is boring, you're out there for hours, but you know, it is really entertaining if you start chatting to people, etc., etc. That's kind of why I love cricket so much, I guess. What about you, Andy?
It's really good. So it's very similar to you, Will. I grew up playing cricket, so I was at school. I played cricket. I was first team captain at school, and we were a good side. And then I played at Bath Cricket Club, which was a really massively important part of my growing up. You know, like you just said, I met people from all walks of life, and this was a long time ago. You know, I'm talking a very long time ago, but I'm still good friends with them. We meet twice a year. We have the old alumni, the old friends get together. We share our stories, and I'll tell you why. As I look back on my career, what I reference most is the ability to communicate with people, anyone, at any time, any level. People would, you know, in cricket, any walk of life, any trade, walk around the boundary, always having chats with people. They're the regulars that come. That's what I love about cricket. It unites different people into one common dialogue. And it sounds like you've got the same.
Spot on. Yeah, I think it just brings everyone together, as you were saying, for this shared common passion, which we both have. You know, we've never met before, but I'm pretty sure we could sit here and chat about cricket for hours and hours and hours. And I think that sums it up, really. Yeah,
absolutely. What do you do? What do you do most? What's your particular cricket specialism?
I try and bowl fast and then hit the ball a long way at the lower end of the order. What about you?
Well, no, I used to open the batting, but I was one of these people that I would get lots or none. I'm not a great innings builder. I used to be able to see a ball, and I could hit a ball, and on a good day, score a lot of runs. On a bad day, no. I lived in the era of Ian Botham and Vivian Richards, so I was very lucky. Viv Richards was, for a year when he first arrived, he was the groundsman at my club in Bath.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So we learned, I learned from the masters. Yeah. I used to model myself on Ian Botham.
I don't blame you.
Do you have a particular? Do you role model anyone yet?
Not massively. I think growing up, sort of childhood cricketing heroes are Sussex players. So Hove is my county ground where I went and saw my first game of cricket. So Chris Jordan is one. Matt Pryor, I don't keep, but I was obsessed with him randomly when I was younger. And there's a couple of others in there.
Very good. So, well, you're right, we could talk cricket all day. And what the beauty of it is, it just gives you the ability to talk with anyone. Once you find it, have a great conversation. Let's talk about your charity. Because I talk with a lot of people, a lot of leaders, a lot of entrepreneurs, people who've got stories. And I've been really excited to talk to you today because you were 11 when you went on tour to Sri Lanka.
Yes.
And you found something. What did you find? Tell me what you found.
So I was really lucky and fortunate when I was 11 to go on tour to Sri Lanka. I was invited on the tour and I kind of went on a lads trip, so to speak. It was me and my dad, my mum and my brother and sister stayed at home. And playing in Sri Lanka is by far one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. On the tour, I was really lucky to play in some brilliant places around Sri Lanka, including the Test ground in Colombo, some university stadiums against decent opposition. And then on the complete flip side of things, and this is where it all really does begin in Sri Lanka, we played a local village side on a coconut mat because they didn't have a wicket in Kandy, which is a very rural, jungly area of Sri Lanka. And so playing against this local village side, the thing that you notice first is the complete lack of equipment that they had, but the joy and the smiles that cricket was bringing the kids, which is sort of what we were talking about earlier, how these kids were literally living to play cricket. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it since. And that stuck with me a lot. And sort of reflecting on the tour, that image in my head, which I can still remember whilst we're chatting today, I can still clearly picture those kids in Sri Lanka, motivated me, wanted me to sort of get involved, and that's kind of where it all begins, I guess.
Well, I think that's fantastic. What was the first step? When you step into something, you saw something, it engendered a response in you, and you went, "I'll take a first step." What did you do? What was going through your mind? What when you took that first step? What made it happen?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question. So I would call it a complete and utter plunge into the unknown. So I first sort of started going about the charity and formulating the idea when I was 14. So that I was young, still am young at the time, even younger. And I basically put together, truth be told, quite a dodgy, poor punctuated email, which I sort of formulated so I can copy and paste it and change the names to various different causes, saying this is me, this is what I'd like to do, this is my sort of concept. And I sent it out to 3 or 4 different charities in Sri Lanka, because that's where it began for me, and I was keen for that to sort of be where it all first kicks off, so to speak. I sent out the emails late one night, very late. I finally managed to muster the confidence, grew wings, so to speak, and pressed the send button, and then forgot about it. I'd done the initial bit, I sent out the email, and then a month and a half later, I've just gone back to school. I get a random response flying into my inbox after a rugby session, saying, "This is really cool, I'd like to help. I'm sorry my team hasn't been in touch, but we're keen to pick this up some way, shape or form." So in terms of answering your question, it was very much just having the confidence to put yourself out there almost.
Yeah, like many. And it is interesting. So in some of the research that I did when I was looking at some of the other interviews that you had, well, I looked at the interview you had with Eddie Izzard, as he was running on a walking machine, and you were there with your mum and you were talking about this experience. And the big thing that came up from that is you are a proper entrepreneur.
Thank you.
The fact is you started a charity. You could start many other things, but you started and you took that step into it. We call people like you pioneers, and you lead the way for others. You lead the way for others to come through and settle with you. So as you developed this, as you developed the charity, because charities are businesses, businesses. It's hard. It's hard to get established. It's hard to get momentum, let alone the journey you've taken along. So what happened then? You stepped in, you sent that email, you had a response. What gave it momentum? What was the thing that really pulled you into it and went, yeah, I'm going to make this happen?
I sort of got the bug, I guess, is the phrase you can use. So off the back of the email, we start trading conversations. And it's at this time that I bring my parents into the loop. So for the first 3 months, so to speak, of coming up with the idea, writing dodgy plans on Word and a very rough, raw business plan, and then sending out the email, I kept it all secret to myself. Because I didn't want to be that person who went to their parents, their friends, their wider family and said, this is what I'm doing. Look, it's this really fantastic idea. One, because it's not about me. It's about the places that I would like to support. And secondly, because I wanted to have proof of concept. So people would take me seriously because of my age. And so I loop in my parents, we get on a call, and we're then sort of introduced to a brilliant guy called Alex Rees, who's actually he was based in New Zealand. He now works in the UK, who set up a charity in Sri Lanka after leaving school. So similar story, but at a later development. And he just basically dropped me a couple of pearls of wisdom and said, this is what you need to do. Come back to me when you've done this and that.
Yeah.
And that's sort of when I had a rough guidance from someone else, which I think is really important to have, and knew what would be required of me to really take the next steps in formulating the charity.
I think that's great. And I think the other thing that I've done some work with some of the other cricketing charities, like A Chance to Shine. One of my good friends runs that for the Southwest, Stu Prescott. And I've seen these cricketing charities evolve and grow communities and enable things to happen. And I think that the fact that you can then enable people like me that's got kit to make a difference, to do something with it. You know, I used to go through bats and I'd have a collection of them. Never thought about recycling. So you've not just grown a recycling business, charity, you've grown something where people can make a difference to others. So, massive credit to you for doing that, and to have that vision and to have that mindset to go, I'm going to make this happen. What got in the way? Tell me that you must have had obstacles.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to hold my hand up and say we've had obstacles, because as quite often you find, and I'm sure you hear this a lot, the obstacles, the setbacks, the fails, you learn the most from quite considerably. And I definitely learned that early on, I think. I know it's a cliche thing to say, but it really is true. So I guess to give you 3 very broad and rough obstacles that we faced in the early stages of the development was, one, corruption, as sad as it is to say. Some of the countries that we operate and work in, where we're having the biggest impact as well, are very corrupt natured countries. Customs, getting things into these countries without paying under the door fees, etc., was always going to be difficult, and has and still is to this day difficult. But there are ways to go around it. Not taking the easy road and doing the wrong thing. You can sort of find ways to go about it and do it properly. Another sort of challenge that we definitely faced, or more personally actually that I faced, and still, to be fair, to this day do face again, was my age. So I started this very young. It sort of started to take off more when I was 15. And to this day, I'm now 17. And that is relatively young to be doing something like this. And especially when you're speaking to people who are older than you, they tend not to, if you're not as established at the time, take you seriously. So to combat that, for the first 6 to 9 months, I kept my age, my story, why I did it secret. So you would go onto the Back for a Chance website, there'd be nothing about me, nothing about my age, not my story, so to speak. Because I would quite often pick up the phone and speak to people, and they weren't realizing they were speaking to a teenager. They thought it was an adult who was fully employed doing this and that. Because if they did know at the time, because we weren't as well respected, that I was so young, it wouldn't have gone the same way. We wouldn't have had the same conversation, to be brutally honest with you. And then finally, the other sort of challenge that we faced was collecting the kit. So to start things off, that's the sort of first thing that we really had to do, because at the end of the day, you've got to have cricket kit to send it where it needs to go. So, at the start, that was just getting the ball rolling was difficult.
Thanks for sharing that, because you're absolutely right. The brain and our ability to succeed is very well fed by, we call them learns, things you learn, not mistakes, not obstacles, interferences that you deal with and you get over them, and we learn from them and we grow from them. The brain likes that. We call it a growth mindset. So, I'm sure you've heard of growth mindset many times. We coach this. But what we love about that is that what you've just verbalized there is growth mindset. You don't let things get in your way. You learn from them. You embrace the obstacle. You take the feedback. You deal with it. You build strategies. So huge credit to you. So where's the charity at now? Will, where are you? You'll be 18 soon. You'll be grown up. What are you going to do next with it? Where are you going to take it next? I have to just, at this point, just thank Omar Khan, the lovely Omar, for introducing us. And he told me I'm going to meet a very, very grown-up 17-year-old, and I am. Where are you taking it next, Will? What's driving you? Where's this going next?
So just to quickly jump in there, I also have got to say a massive thank you to Omar. He's been on board with the charity for about a year now, and in that year we've done some really, really remarkable things. He's really helped transform and help mould it into what it is today, and he's now our chairman, which is brilliant, but again, I owe a lot to him too. In terms of where the charity is going, we're at a really exciting time in our development. We've just appointed 6 new trustees from a complete range of jobs, businesses, backgrounds, etc. So that includes people working at the ECB, lawyers, human rights and refugee lawyers, anti-corruption lawyers, senior execs of worldwide businesses, etc. And we've been really, really lucky with our appointments and those who applied. We've had a really, really good, strong candidate pool. It was very difficult to choose trustees, but we've got there in the end, and we've got a really remarkable group, I'm very happy to say. And that trustee group, which one of whom is also my mum, underpins where we're going to go in sort of the next 3 to 4 years. We're hoping to focus in 2022 on 5 specific countries. So one of which is, of course, the UK. You can't forget the need at home. There quite often is just as desperate a situation on our doorstep as there is in India or Pakistan. And touching on that, India and Pakistan are also 2 of the 5 that we're going to be supporting. And then finally, Sri Lanka and the West Indies, more specifically Barbados. So those are our sort of 5 pilot projects, you could call them, that we're going to hopefully set up throughout 2022. But we're also going to continue to support some of the brilliant random one-off projects where people apply for kit because they're flying to an underprivileged country on the Saturday and they need it by the Friday, and they've called me on Tuesday. Because that's back for a chance at its pure essence and raw form. It's what we're all about, really.
How do you manage all this with being at school? You've got 2 jobs. You've got Will the schoolboy, Will the driving chief executive. I hear too.
It's difficult. I keep them very separate, is what I would say. So at school, I've got some brilliant friends who are very supportive of what I do. But then sort of outside of that, I only actually filled in the school as to what I was doing last year. So I just kept it completely separate because I didn't really want to have that label of the guy who runs a charity as much as I start to slowly have it now, because the school are aware and I do a couple of bits and bobs for them. Because again, that's not what the charity is about. That's not really what I'm about either. And managing the 2 has been challenging. It's not easy to find a balance, a work-life balance as well. As you touched on, it's like doing 2 full-time things at once, and trying to find time for yourself within that can be difficult. But I think it's really, really important, especially because I'm younger. As much as it's great that I can do these awesome experiences, I've still got to be a teenager at the end of the day sometimes and enjoy myself and go out and have fun. So finding that balance, I think, especially over the last year and a half, has been really important to me, and knowing where the line is between school, charity stuff, and then Will Gaffney, the teenage kid, has been a real learning curve, but I think we've got there now, and it's just being organised, knowing when to stop doing something, when to turn the laptop off, when to actually say, unfortunately, I can't come to that because I'm going to go and see my mates. Or on the complete flip side of things, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't come to pre-season because I've got a charity event in Scotland, kind of thing.
Well, it's been a real eye-opener and a real pleasure to have a chat with you today. And, you know, what you've described is the mindset of an entrepreneur, the mindset of a pioneer. And, you know, it's huge credit to you that you've taken that idea and you've turned it into something that's brought the support of others, and you're making a massive difference to communities using cricket. So that passion at the core of what you do, you've turned into something that will be, because all those places where you've made a difference will continue to grow. So real congratulations to you, Will. You're going to have a wonderful life ahead of you. And if ever there's anything we can do to help you, just call. It's been a fantastic chat this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Likewise, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
You've been listening to The Mindset Advantage. Follow Arcadia Consulting on social media platforms to stay updated.